Hello everyone, it is eVill, welcome back to my channel, and you probably want to know stuff about the platypus, and so do I, so let's get into it. I mean, it is one of the weirdest animals on the planet by far, and when scientists were first brought a platypus, they thought it was a fake, stitched together from several other animals. So, firstly, there is only one living platypus species, the duck-billed platypus, known by its scientific name as Ornithorhynchus anatinus. The platypus belongs to an ancient order of mammals called the monotremes. Basically, that means that the platypus is not a marsupial or a placental mammal, which includes us. Instead, it is a member of a third group that includes the platypus and 4 species of echidna. Or as we like to call them in Finnish, the beaked hedgehogs. And for Finnish standards, that's a pretty solid name. It's the nokkasiili. Like, it's easy to say, I remember it. Like I learned it as a kid, it's that good. Monotremes are actually extremely decently related to us. They separated from other modern mammals about 220 million years ago, at least according to genetic studies. Well, actually, the estimates range from 220 to 163 million years ago. But the most recent dates are kind of disproven by the fossil record, because it has some Eutherians already by 151 million years ago, so it's likely that the split between the two happened, closer to the 200 million mark. And because of that, I personally lean more toward the 200 million years ago time frame, just because of the traits that monotremes have. Unfortunately, the further you go back in time, the less accurate the exact time becomes. So that is why these estimates can be off by so many millions of years. Usually you would use the fossil record to line up the dates, so you can make sure what is correct. But unfortunately with mammals and especially with monotremes, the other lineages are already dead, and fossils from the monotremes are very uncommon, probably because of the size and the lifestyle that they used to have. And besides, they were probably kind of rare anyway. The platypus split from the echidna around 19 to 49 million years ago. Another super inaccurate time frame, but if someone does more tests, they could probably make it more accurate. And now, with the family tree mapped out, let's get into why exactly the platypus is so weird, in case you are unfamiliar with them. And I'll do it a bit differently here, because instead of starting how they are different, I'm going to be going over how they are similar to other mammals. Firstly, superficially, they obviously do have fur like all other mammal lineages, and they are endothermic unlike most reptilians and fish, which are not able to regulate their bodies. They also only have one lower jawbone and 3 different bones in the middle ear, just like other mammals and different from birds and reptiles that have multiple jawbones and only 1 bone in the middle ear. And that is because the bones from the jaws in our ancestors migrated into the ear. They weren't necessary there for us. And while the platypus lose their teeth when they grow into adults, they do have some mammal-style molars when they are small. And well, that's about all of the normal things about the platypus, because they are really fucking weird. The reason why they lose their teeth is actually really interesting. Electroreception. For it to be possible, they needed a ton of nerves in their beak, and there wasn't any room for roots of the teeth, so evolution favored electroreception over them. And this is also why the platypus beak is so wide, to sense extremely weak electric currents in the water, created from the contractions of the muscles of its prey. So yeah, that is the same thing that the hammerhead sharks use to hunt. Platypus hunt without their vision, smell or hearing. They ignore everything else and even close their eyes to use electroreception. Their beak has a whole sheet of electroreceptors to tell what direction a signal is coming from. Their eyes are still important to them and are used in communicating with other platypus and probably some other platypus activities, but they aren't necessary for hunting and their vision is also very poor. Also, because they lost their teeth, they naturally needed something to eat their food, so the platypus developed these hardened pads made of keratin that basically work as a replacement teeth. Of course, the platypus also lays eggs, soft leathery eggs, and this is probably the most well-known fact about them. they actually share the same gene that is used for egg yolk production in modern birds, showing how all mammals likely used to lay eggs at one point. And after their babies hatch, the platypus breastfeed their babies, except they don't have breasts. They just secrete the milk from their glands, like somewhere, I don't know, and then it flows on their fur into a spot where the baby just drinks it. And that sounds really awkward to me and really inefficient, but if it works, I guess it works, go get it. Platypus also have a reptile-like gait, so basically they are permanently manspreading, even though their testicles are inside their body. That gait is probably another ancestral feature in all mammals, but in therians their legs evolved to move under their bodies, just like with birds and dinosaurs. And another fun fact actually, crocodilians used to have their legs under their bodies, but I guess they went to the old reliable when they started to AFK camp near the water sources. By the way, the platypus also has 5 pairs of sex chromosomes instead of the 1 pair that other mammals have. So they are weird like that too. Of course, the amount of sex chromosomes doesn't actually matter anywhere, but it is an interesting fact. The platypus poops, pees and gives birth from just one hole, called a cloaca, similarly to birds. The male platypus also has a dick, but it is hidden next to the hole normally and they don't pee from it. So that is very odd. These surprises don't end there, because the platypus is actually venomous. That is right. We know moose. It secretes its strong venom from its spur, and while it is not normally strong enough to kill a human, it can cause you pain for weeks and it can kill a dog. While researching for this video, I found an article about how a human thought that the pain was worse than giving birth. And keep in mind, this pain continues for weeks, so I think that gives an idea about how painful it is. However, only the male platypus have venom. The female platypus don't have these spurs at all. And even though they are used for attacking predators and protecting themselves, they are probably more important for males to fight each other. Even more surprisingly, this used to be a common trait in mammals. But once again, the therian mammals don't have it. Our ancestor from 200 million years ago likely did have that though, and it was probably one really weird little thing. Oh yeah, and also, the platypus tail works as a fat reserve, so if a platypus has a thick tail, that means that it is very fat. Also, to disprove a myth held by some people, them having reptile-like traits does not mean that they are inferior to placental mammals or us. This type of thought comes from the bias of considering everything more similar to ourselves as superior, and probably some racists need to learn from that fact a little bit. The platypus are very successful and they have survived so far. It's not fair to consider them as inferior. And for their sizes, the platypus are around 1 to 2 kilograms in weight and 50 centimeters in length, so they aren't that big. And with that, we move into the distribution. And I am happy to inform you that the platypus is not in threat of going extinct. Woohoo! But it is near threatened and has recently disappeared from some estuaries, so its wild population is declining, much like many other cool and unique animals. We are just ruining nature all over the places. Luckily there are still an estimated 300,000 wild platypus, so loggers and other pieces of shit will need to work hard to kill them all. They are found in eastern Australia and Tasmania, and they are missing from northern Australia, probably because of crocodiles and also probably because of the fact that it is northern Australia. They live in murkier waters and hunt invertebrates, from worms to crustaceans. They don't really hunt vertebrates though. Because they don't have any teeth, they probably aren't that good at catching fish. In the early days of Australian colonization, they were hunted for their furs, as was seemingly every other medium-sized mammal, and before that the Aboriginals sometimes caught them as food. Some newly introduced species like cats and dogs and foxes hunt them, but Nothing specifically competes for their niche, probably thanks to them being so weird, so I have a good feeling for the survival of the platypus, at least for the short term. And I do sincerely hope that they survive. The result of hundreds of millions of years of evolution being lost due to a temporary human gain would be really freaking sad. And that concludes the video. My references were the Platypus Wikipedia page, monotreme Wikipedia page, and a random list of articles that I have already forgotten that I used to fact check stuff. Also, there is a cute video in the description about the platypus, so check that out if you want to see something nice. Oh yeah, and please subscribe so that I can buy better lighting and a better camera for myself. Thank you and bye bye.